Dan Cohen es un reconocido periodista y un multipremiado documentalista estadounidense. Es el director fundador de Capture Media, un sitio especializado en periodismo de investigación que ha hecho coberturas especiales en Colombia, Haití, Israel, Palestina y los Estados Unidos. Su documental más reciente, titulado Otra visión dentro de la rebelión haitiana, explora el ascenso del liderazgo político de Jimmy Barbecue Cherisier y de su organización, las Fuerzas Revolucionarias del G9. Cohen residió entre Israel y Palestina de 2014 a 2017, periodo durante el cual realizó coberturas del sionismo extremista y realizó el documental Matando a Gaza, que expone el brutal asalto militar que Israel llevó a cabo en Gaza durante 51 días. Fue premiado como el segundo mejor documental en el Festival Internacional de Cine de Resistencia en Teherán, Irán.
So here we are with Dan Cohen. Thank you so much, Dan, for accompanying us here on UNAM Public Television here in Mexico. Pleasure to have you, Dan.
Glad to be with you, John.
You're in Arizona, I think, right now, right?
Indeed, just visiting some family in my hometown of Phoenix. Wishing I was further south in Mexico.
Oh, this was, our territory. Phoenix was part of Mexico, so we'll have to reestablish that reconquest sometime soon together, right?
One day, I'm your guy up here.
So I've been watching your documentaries. When was the one about Israel, right? The killing Gaza. That was 2014, perhaps. When was that?
It was that documentary covered the 2014 Israeli war on Gaza and the aftermath. So I was there in Gaza for about a total of 7 months over a 2-year period. And then we published it in 2017 or 2018. So yeah, that was the last one.
And the more recent series has been about Haiti. Fascinating exploration of the situation there today, in which perhaps different but similar situation in terms of the death and the destruction and the human suffering being created by imperial exploits, or at least in the case of Haiti, abandonment of an entire country. What brought you to have this keen interest in Haiti in particular?
Well, I got interested in Haiti when the president, Jovenel Moise, was assassinated in a very grisly manner in July 2021. And so at that point, I reached out to the journalist Kim Ives, who has been covering Haiti for many, many years and is one of the preeminent experts on the country. And, I wanted to interview him about what was happening. And he gave me the context that, well, Haiti is in this sort of revolutionary moment. And the background is there's this armed uprising happening. There's an armed group at the center of this uprising, and his name is Jimmy Cherisier. And so I said, well, can I go meet him? Can we go meet him? And he said, yeah. And so we went to Haiti twice shortly after the assassination of the president, and that turned into this documentary series called Another Vision Inside Haiti's Uprising. And so I've just been very, very focused on the country ever since then.
And Haiti is a particular interesting case in terms of the fact that, as you present in your first chapter of this documentary, has always been a rebellious area of Latin America. It was the first independence, the first revolution in the entire region. And since then, for hundreds of years, has been punished by imperial powers from France to the United States, and has still not been able to consolidate its sovereignty, its democracy, because of this international meddling. To this day, this continues to be the central issue. Or why has the international community actually not been concerned about the destiny of the Haitian people? What's going on?
Well, I think fundamentally, Haiti presents a problem to the, as Anthony Blinken calls it, the rules-based order of neoliberal capitalism, which is that whether in Palestine or whether in Haiti or anywhere else in Latin America, the United States sees these countries as places to extract resources and wealth and profit, and also to deindustrialize, and then to take the labor, or to exploit for cheap labor. And so there is nowhere that has been as exploited in the Western Hemisphere, really, as Haiti, to the extreme degree that it has been, going back to the pre-revolutionary days, before the 1791 to 1804 revolution, the only successful slave revolution, slave revolt in history, to the present day. And so if we look at Haiti's role historically, from being that vanguard country that sparked liberation movements across the Americas, to the what's known in English as the pink tide, the elections of progressive governments in Latin America, beginning in the 1990s, before Hugo Chavez, before Kirchner in Argentina. There was Jean-Bertrand Aristide in Haiti, and he was seen as a threat to the United States, despite being the most popular president Haiti has ever seen, the most popular leader. And he was deposed in 2 coups d'etats orchestrated by the United States. And so the United States has always wanted to keep Haiti in chains, not only because of the profits it can extract from the labor force, but also because Haiti has long served as a model for the Americas. There are so many countries, the Haitian Revolution inspired so many liberation struggles, and actually took an active role in liberation struggles, whether in Venezuela or in the United States. There were Haitians involved in slave uprisings, and I believe even in Mexico there were Haitians involved. That, I think, is Haiti still plays that fundamental role, because the system has not fundamentally changed. We went from slavery and colonialism to kind of wage slavery and neocolonialism, and so Haiti is still in that vanguard role, and it is severely punished for being in that role.
And you can still detect from your travels there and people you've talked to a revolutionary spirit in the popular culture of Haiti today. Is that something that you can feel on the streets, or is it just poverty and destitution?
Oh, without a doubt. I think every Haitian that I met in Haiti, almost every Haitian, kind of carries that revolutionary spirit, even if they may not understand the, geopolitical chessboard that has put their country in this situation. They do not want foreign boots on the ground. They do not want the United States to intervene or invade, more accurately, their country. And that is pretty much across the board among the masses, despite political differences. So there's very much a revolutionary spirit among the Haitian masses that is undeniable.
That's fascinating, because what you're trying to demonstrate here is that the real fear of the United States is of another Cuba, right? Another revolution that could create a bad example for the rest of Latin America. Because in terms of natural resources, we're not really we don't have a lot at stake here, right? I mean, Haiti doesn't have oil or important mining interests, or is that also there?
No, there are some actual big natural resources in Haiti. I believe iridium is or is it uranium? There are big deposits there. There are also, I believe, natural gas deposits. Mm-hmm. So there are some natural resources that are, the U.S. is very honed in on. But I think the overriding factor is what you described, that Haiti cannot be allowed to serve as a model. I mean, of course, if you have a twin of Cuba, just to the west, then that threatens the entire geopolitical order that the United States has imposed throughout the Americas. Well, if Cuba, of course, out of the U.S. grip, then they lose Haiti. What happens to the other half of Hispaniola, to the Dominican Republic, where many of the wealthy interests that fled Cuba in that revolution, they went to the Dominican Republic. What happens if they lose that? Then you have Puerto Rico. so it's very much, the United States is worried about some kind of domino effect. And if it loses the Caribbean, then what does that mean for the rest of Latin America, particularly in this time where progressive governments are coming back through democratic elections? Of course, in Brazil, we saw the coup fail. In Bolivia, after some time. So I think it's a real time of peril for U.S. empire, and that's why the U.S. is so keen to impose its will on Haiti.
I was speaking 2 weeks ago with a guest on this show, a professor from University of California, Berkeley, who's originally from Puerto Rico, Ramon Grosfogel. If you know his writings on this topic of the Great Caribbean. The Caribbean Basin as being precisely a hotbed for revolution. It's not a coincidence that we have Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, this whole area of African descent, a history of slavery and of rebellion, which continues very much present today, and that really, scares the wits out of the Washington establishment. And so this definitely seems like a very important scenario for disputing empire that you've been documenting, and very brave of you to go directly to the streets and interview the principal actors. I've seen your document about Jimmy Cherizier and barbecue, and he sounds like a quite eloquent, intelligent, committed guy. Or is that just a show he's putting on for your camera?
When I went to Haiti in July 2021 with Kim Ives, my co-director of the documentary, I told him ahead of time, I don't know if I'm going to agree with you about this guy, Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier. So I can't really promise you anything, Kim, even though we're going on this reporting trip. I went down there and interviewed him and saw the situation and looked into kind of the interests of, the kind of prominent actors behind different political sectors, and I looked into what this guy Jimmy Cherizier was telling us, his side of the story, and it checked out. What he told us, everything I fact checked was true. Everything that Kim presented to me turned out to be true. And so what I realized is there is a political current in Haiti that is being that has real revolutionary spirit, that is being totally maligned by the mainstream media, by the corporate media in the United States in particular, and in the West in general. And I mean, for myself, that immediately says, well, that's something you should check out. If they're saying this guy's the devil, if the US and media and government says this guy's the devil, you should go talk to him. And so everything I've found about this guy is true. And in my multiple visits and interviews from the summer of 2021 to the autumn of 2022, I've only seen his revolutionary consciousness kind of increase. He exudes revolutionary energy, and he's very clear. He speaks in very clear and simple terms about what the movement he represents, the armed federation he represents. What are their demands? Clean water, good education, housing, basic things that we all need. And for this, he's portrayed in the Western media as like a mass murderer and a killer and just the worst things you can imagine. So to me, everything I've found checks out, and that he has support among sectors of the masses.
The dominant narrative in the United States is that, or in the world in general, is that this is just chaos, right? Gang violence all over the place. No good guys or no bad guys. Just, well, maybe their good guys and bad guys are more sort of class issues, right? You have the wealthy who want to save their country, and the poor who are just killing themselves between each other in this gang violence. They don't make any kind of distinction between the projects, the vision, the way of acting of each one of these different gangs. Have you interviewed the other gang leaders who are fighting against Cherizier? I saw a couple of brief interviews in parts of your document, but you didn't go too much into that. What are they about? They're just sort of bandits at the service of the wealthy. I mean, is that the correct way of looking at it?
Essentially, the armed groups in Haiti, with the Western media, or what is often referred to as gangs or bandits. The question is, do they have masters? Whose interests are they acting on behalf of? And if you examine the statements that they've made, or some of the oligarchs have made, it's clear that some of them, or almost all of them essentially, are being paid by powerful interests to do their bidding. So when it comes time for elections, a gang might attack another in order to take over territory, and then you can consolidate power and get votes for a certain political sector. And there are many like that. There are also many that are involved in kidnapping, in extortion, in rape, all kinds of horrible crimes. And these are the ones that are never mentioned by the United States media. These are the ones that are not under sanctions by the United States or the United Nations. However, the one so-called gang leader that is constantly mentioned in Western media and by Washington is the one that doesn't have any master, who represents the needs of the people, who's willing to talk about the conditions that the masses live in, to say, we live in lakes of sewage. We are dying from basic diseases that no one else in really this hemisphere is dealing with. We are living in the worst conditions, and this is a result of foreign powers meddling inside Haiti's affairs with the collaboration, the connivance of bourgeois political class, he calls it the corrupt and stinking political class. And so he has a deep class analysis that you just don't see from others. Fundamentally, he's speaking in ways that just you don't see anyone else really speaking in the country. I will say the only figure that I've seen that ever spoke that way before was the former president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who was a liberation theologian who talked about the needs of the masses. But his prescription was, we need the rich to pay their fair share, to pay taxes, so the masses don't live in poverty and in these horrible conditions. And how did that work out? Well, he was elected, but he was deposed in coup d'états, and he did not want to use weapons to defend that political revolution. And so Jimmy Cherizier, decades later, comes along, and he has an extremely similar message. It's basically the same message as Jean-Bertrand Aristide did decades ago in the 1990s, except he has a gun and he's willing to use it. And he's saying, we're not asking, we're taking it. That's his message.
And as you document in the documentary, he can actually walk peacefully among his people. That's something very important, that he's supported by his own community. But let me go to a quick break. We'll be right back to continue with this fascinating discussion with Dan Cohen. No se vayan, regresamos en unos minutitos después de el corte. Aquí seguimos con el documentalista Dan Cohen, gran trabajo sobre Haití. Here we are with Dan Cohen still. Thank you so much, Dan, for staying on with us. Gracias al público por seguir con nosotros. Estamos hablando sobre Haití, sobre la situación ahí y sobre el trabajo que ha hecho Dan Cohen, muy importante, en particular, haciendo un perfil de uno de los líderes revolucionarios, dice Dan, del proceso social en Haití. So it's very poetic, your scenes of him walking, of Jimmy Cherizier walking through his neighborhood. You collect some opinions against him, some in favor of him. It seems to be a miracle that he's still alive in this context, right? I mean, if he is everything that he says he is, and you're saying that you've demonstrated by fact-checking and by interviewing that he's a real revolutionary who's organizing the masses to change the country. He's armed, but of course the government is better armed. What's going on there? Who's funding and who's protecting? It's really just the people. Tell me about this.
So Cherizier's story is essentially this. He was a cop in a gang and riot fighting brigade for about 15 years. And what happened in 2018 is, under pressure from the United States, basically there was an anti-gang operation that he was involved in that went awry, and this is all shown in the documentary. We go into it in detail, and it went bad, and he was basically thrown. He was the fall guy. He was blamed for it, and he claims unjustly. And everything, that I've seen is he's correct that it was unjust. We have, as we show in the documentary, these photos of the government saying great job and thank you for your service. And then days later, he's blamed, this is your fault, what happened. Okay, so this started him in this transformation from kind of straight shooter, straight arrow cop who was just trying to do better for his neighborhood within the confines of this system to, this system is completely rotten and now they've sacrificed me. And so at the same time, he's creating what is called Another Vision, a social program he called Another Vision. That's where we take the name of the documentary, where unlike the rest, unlike essentially in government controlled areas, there is no potable water, there is no basic services. They are providing these things. They're providing clean water, food, recreation, youth activities, education, and that became the social program of what they were doing. And so then there, at the same time, the oligarchs are trying to basically co-opt him and saying, do this dirty work for us, do this dirty work for us, because they see him as a powerful neighborhood leader. And as he rejects them, that aligned the bourgeoisie against him. And that, of course, heightened his consciousness. So the more they kind of go against him, and the U.S. and the goes against him, the more it kind of heightens his consciousness, and he understands the system that he's up against better. And he is a former cop, so he knows how to use weapons. And there are many other armed groups throughout Haiti. Because there's a total weakness and absence of the state, invariably what happens is what you might call strongmen emerge in different neighborhoods who provide some sort of security or whatever it is, some of them involved in criminal activity like extortion, kidnapping in order to make money, and some of them are not. Some of them simply reject that. He rejected it. He has always rejected it. And so he decided, instead of all the poor neighborhoods being at war with each other while the oligarchs benefit, let's unite the armed groups together and have a revolution. And so he united 9 different armed groups who were not involved in criminal activity and called that the G9. And then they made truces with groups who were involved in criminal activity and said, okay, you're not part of our group, but we don't want to be at war with you, so let's have a truce. And immediately when the G9 was established in 2020, the UN even states that it led to a reduction in violence. There was a kind of period of calm. The US and the bourgeoisie in Haiti immediately identified this thing as a serious threat. So they poured huge amounts of money and weapons into destabilizing the G9, having those truces broken. And essentially that's been the situation ever since. In terms of where he gets, Cherizier and the G9 get their guns, Haiti is completely awash in guns, thanks to the loose laws of the United States and Florida in particular, that, it's extremely easy to get guns. They've been shipped into Haiti for a long time from the Dominican Republic, from its shores. So it's easy for basically anyone to get guns, and especially in recent years, very high-powered, military style automatic weapons. So those are really ubiquitous. In terms of who's paying him, he doesn't have a patron, like some overseas patron or a political interest. The bourgeois opposition, the elements of the oligarchy claim that the government is paying him, and that he's a tool of the government. That's the main claim. And it's sort of like the, Trump Russia claim, or Trump was a puppet of Russia, or Russia bombed its own pipeline. It's that sort of thing where it's like, it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to make sense because it has political utility to destroy the image of this movement. But there's not a shred of evidence that the G9 or Jimmy Cherizier are working on behalf of the government or any kind of powerful interest. And so they're under constant attack by the police themselves, exemplified by starting in September of 2022, there was a several-week standoff between Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier, the G9, and the Haitian National Police, in which they had very fierce battles. So it just doesn't make sense at all in reality.
And his group was powerful enough that they closed off a whole port, right? An oil importation port that for how long? For 5 weeks? Or how long was it?
6.5 weeks this time.
6.5 weeks.
They basically, so what happened is the United States and International Monetary Fund pressured the Haitian puppet government of Ariel Henry, the de facto prime minister, who was never elected, to get rid of fuel subsidies for the population. So overnight, fuel doubles, triples. Nobody can afford anything. And these are people living in extreme poverty. They can't send their child to school. They can't go work in informal markets. Life is, basically upended. So there are mass protests that break out against the government, calling on Ariel Henry, the de facto prime minister, to either reinstate the subsidies or to resign. And that was the mass protests. And the G9, Barbecue and the G9 say, well, what we can do as an armed group is we can go blockade that fuel terminal, because now this fuel terminal, called the Varua fuel terminal, it's one of 3 fuel terminals only in Port-au-Prince. This fuel terminal is now only for the oligarchy, only for the extremely wealthy. The masses can't afford it. So if why should the ultra wealthy have access to gas while the rest of us who already live in horrible conditions do not? And so that was the idea behind going to blockade this fuel terminal. And so there were no protests against Barbecue for blockading this fuel terminal. He obviously had the masses' support. There was no, let gas flow again. In fact, there were other protests around the country. There was a fuel truck that came from the Dominican Republic into Haiti, and a town blocked it for several hours until the police came and broke it up and allowed the fuel truck to get through. So it was really an act that reflected the demands of the masses. Repeal.
Was it successful? Did they stop the fuel hikes, or were they finally repressed and desalojados
right
from their protests?
Yeah, they after 6.5 weeks of battles with the Haitian National Police, the G9 was defeated in that round. Basically, what happened is the United States and Canada shipped armored vehicles to the Haitian National Police, which gave them basically the firepower, the ability to overcome this blockade. And so there were very, very fierce battles, some of which I document in my piece from November for Redacted. There were very fierce battles between the Haitian National Police and the G9, or it's actually called the FRG9, the Revolutionary Forces of the G9. They've changed their name too. And because they had these armored vehicles delivered by the United States and Canada, they were able to defeat the blockade. So the thinking at that point was, well, okay, we've lost the blockade. We're not going to try to reestablish it to mount a counteroffensive. Now we'll just let the country be in the hands of Ariel Henry and to show that he is responsible for this mess, that under his his control, no one can afford, a gallon of gas. No one can afford the basic necessities of life. And so that's where it stands essentially today.
That is powerful symbol, right? That the response of the United States and government to grassroots protests for better living standards, taking granted, of course, radical actions, has been repression instead of actually attending to the root needs and demands of these groups. And this has been in general the idea that that Haiti needs foreign intervention, needs foreign tutelage. Is there, if Haiti were just sort of left alone, if we could allow for foreign, for domestic political action to develop in a more natural, peaceful way, if there were conditions for that, could Haiti take itself out of this problem? I just interviewed recently the former president of the Dominican Republic, Lionel Fernandez, who is very skeptical about that. He himself supporting international intervention to save his neighbor, Haiti. What's your position on this in general?
My position is that what is currently happening in Haiti with the formation of the FRG9, the growth of it, is exactly that. It is Haiti liberating itself, organizing among the masses to liberate itself. And that is what the foreign interests and the elite interests in Haiti want to prevent from happening, prevent from succeeding. And so in order to do that, there's foreign intervention. There's talk about foreign intervention there, at the highest levels of the United States government and in the UN Security Council. There were sanctions passed against Jimmy Cherizier by the UN, by the United States, and by Canada also. And so I think if the United States, if the foreign powers were to just hands off Haiti, leave Haiti alone, let it figure out its own problems in an organic way, then I think things would be much better. Then Haiti would be able to stand on its own 2 feet and negotiate with the foreign powers, seeing from eye to eye, instead of this master-slave relationship that the United States continues to impose on Haiti. And so that's what we're seeing, I think. But because the power of Western media and propaganda, it's portrayed as, well, there's just, even people who have the best of intentions end up saying, the Haiti's in such a bad situation with these gangs that we have to intervene and just do something. When the reality is these gangs are the result of foreign meddling and foreign intervention, and they essentially always serve the interests of those foreign powers to keep Haiti in the condition that it's in. So I think exactly what we're seeing today is Haiti attempting and struggling to liberate itself, and we need to take a position of hands off Haiti.
And there's an important role here that's Mexico's been playing, and the most recent sanctions against the island and against Syria in particular. Mexico co-authored a couple of bills, one that was passed, one that has not been passed yet, basically supporting this interventionist philosophy. They're calling me up to a second break. Let's go once we get back, we can talk to Dan about this, particularly about the role of Mexico, the role of international NGOs, for instance, another very important thing that comes out in those documentaries. Así que no se vayan, vamos ahorita a un segundo corte y regresamos para seguir con este fascinante diálogo con Dan Cohen. No se vayan. So it was surprising to me, Dan, to read this part about Mexico, because the López Obrador administration is a progressive government and particularly has been committed to the principle of no intervention. This is we have a long history of 100 years of foreign policy, even under the authoritarian system in Mexico, which Mexico has stood out for its principles of no intervention in foreign affairs. We've always recognized Cuba, for instance, even after the revolution. Mexico never fell into the pressures from Washington to separate ourselves from Cuba or from Venezuela, etc. Mexico's always been very independent, very neutral. And for suddenly the Mexico be the only co-signer, right? It was just the United States and Mexico for these two bills or declarations. It was a surprise to me to see that, you know, our foreign minister Ebrard or himself were suddenly changing policy. What are these declarations actually imply?
So there were two draft resolutions co-authored by the United States and Mexico in the UN Security Council. The first resolution, which passed, enacted sanctions against Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier on the basis of these what is referred to as the La Saline massacre. And in the documentary, Another Vision, Kim Ives and I show that the events of La Saline were not a massacre at all. So very similar to, it's kind of Haiti's version of Iraqi WMDs or Syria's chemical weapon attacks, or, you know, it's a deception in order to manufacture consent for imperial aggression. So Mexico co-authored with the United States this one, calling for sanctions on a completely fabricated basis. And then there was another draft resolution that the United States and Mexico authored together, calling for the UN to deputize a UN member state to carry out a military intervention, so-called anti-gang operation, inside Haiti. And Mexico went right along with this. And it's very perplexing for me as someone who's not intimately familiar with Mexican affairs and the political dynamics, but, you know, especially when I look at the role that the AMLO government has played in Latin America, whether it's, you know, with the coup in Bolivia in 2019 and giving refuge and playing such an important role for Evo Morales and the return of democracy today to Bolivia and things like this. So it's a really perplexing and shocking thing for me. And I, you know, want to know more about why Mexico has taken this position. But fortunately, the second resolution failed to pass. There was actually never even a vote on it because it became clear to the United States, which was obviously the lead between the US and Mexico in writing this, that Russia and China would not go along with authorizing a UN military intervention into Haiti. So now the United States strategy for military intervention is basically to find another way, because they know it's not going to happen in the UN. So they're going to look for another way. And actually, the United States has passed a piece of legislation called the Global Fragility Act, which is essentially its new formula for maintaining empire in the neo-colonies around the world. And it seeks to use what it calls small footprint operations, essentially covert military operations, to carry out its dirty work in so-called fragile countries. And the United States has published a list of countries that are targets with this Global Fragility Act, and the very first one is Haiti. And so that's kind of the significance of this. Is not just about Haiti, what the United States is trying to do there. This is something that they want to apply to also to several countries in Africa. Libya is the second country. Then there's also Mozambique, Benin, Ghana, several other countries that, you know, the U.S. is seeking to maintain its dominance over in the context of so-called great power competition against Russia and China. So that is what Mexico, in co-authoring this draft, this resolution that enacted sanctions against Cherizier, and in co-authoring this draft resolution for military intervention in Haiti, that's what Mexico is going along with. So a very kind of bizarre turn of events there.
But we'll have to ask the foreign ministry what their opinion is about this. A few weeks ago, I had a very interesting interview with the former ambassador from Mexico to the United States, Marta Bárcena, who told me that the Mexico foreign minister, secretly negotiated the stay in Mexico agreement for Mexico to do the dirty work in terms of keeping migrants in the United States while they're applying for asylum like in Mexico, while they're applying for asylum in the United States, to the back of the president. The president didn't even know about what was happening there. Maybe something like that is happening. It actually relates because part of the migration crisis, right, comes from Haitians, who are living in Mexico, and this has added a different twist to the relationship between the United States and Mexico. Is this mass migration from Haiti still happening today? How has the United States responded to this? Have they accepted their role in this crisis and opened their welcoming arms to the Haitian migrants, or is racism playing in here? What's going on that front?
Well, the United States deports Haitians, plane loads of Haitians on a daily basis, flies them directly back to Haiti and dumps them off there, while at the same time saying the conditions in Haiti are so bad and the gangs are so violent and dangerous that we must intervene militarily. So it's total hypocrisy from the United States, and the conditions are terrible in Haiti. That's a fact, but that's not really the fault of Haitians themselves, and certainly not the Haitian masses who are struggling to survive or fleeing their country in order to find some opportunity abroad. It's the fault of the so-called international community. This is the United States so-called rules-based order in action, that Haiti is basically a piggy bank for oligarchs who make their money there and then send their wives and families to live in the US or Canada or France to live a life of luxury. And so this is what the United States wants to maintain. The United States want to maintain the status quo in Haiti of massive profits and exploitation, and the Haitian masses living in literal lakes of sewage and garbage, and having only rainwater to drink, and collecting rainwater to drink that mixes with sewage and getting cholera. I mean, the conditions there, if you watch the piece I did for Redacted that was published at the end of November of 2022, you'll see the conditions. We documented them very, very closely, carefully, and it's just beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And this is what the U.S. likes to call its backyard. The old Monroe Doctrine still in effect. This is the U.S.'s backyard. So
now Biden has said that Mexico is no longer the backyard, or Latin America with a front yard, right?
Right.
Which is equally ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, it's just this incredible symbolic importance of what's happening in Haiti. That sort of demonstrates the lack of any real will to resolve human basic necessities. Those scenes from your redacted report are shocking and a call to action. One of the other fascinating parts about your documentary is the role of NGOs, international NGOs, how they come in and they point their finger to some people and forget about the human rights violations of others. In particular, repeating these lies, you say, of the idea that Jimmy Cherizier was somehow responsible for the massacre of La Saline, and simultaneously simply not mentioning the massacres committed by these real gang members at the service of the oligarchy. It's particularly perverse, what you're showing there. Even the EUN reports contribute and repeat, recycle the same statements, sort of travel from one report to another without anybody taking the time to actually do fact checking, right?
Exactly. It's incredible to me that, as far as I know, myself and Kim Ives and Haiti Liberté, the outlet that Kim is the English language editor for Haiti Liberté, which is a Haitian-led outlet. Aside from us, no one has touched has bothered to investigate the claims of what happened in the neighborhood of La Saline, where there was allegedly a massacre that took place, but it was not a massacre in the sense that one side came in and slaughtered a bunch of innocent civilians. Rather, it was a battle between two armed groups. And Jimmy Cherizier had actually nothing to do with it. So this narrative has been promoted by a Haitian, so it's called the Haitian National Network for Human Rights. This outlet is funded by essentially the U.S. government through an organization called the National Endowment for Democracy, and I think that's well known in Mexico. That it's an arm of U.S. meddling, and so it manufactures. It's basically it lies. It does. The National Endowment for Democracy, in the words of its founder, is it does what the CIA used to do, and so it does it in a more kind of public way, and instead of the cloak and dagger, that it's just called democracy promotion. And so this is the same thing that's done in Haiti, where they fund these groups, call them human rights groups, in order to basically do their bidding, to wage information or disinformation warfare, to manufacture an interventionist narrative. And then the AP, the New York Times, all of the mainstream media just reports it as if it's fact and refers to them, so and so found. And so it just becomes this kind of incestuous echo chamber, and nobody bothers to do an active journalism until we came along and looked at this and said, wait a minute, there's no evidence of what you're saying, and all of the available evidence indicates otherwise. So it's abundantly clear what's happened here, and it's the same. It's the same story I've seen so many times with different kind of political conflagrations or countries that I've looked at, whether it's Syria or Palestine or Russia or Ukraine or this or that. There's always huge, I think the Julian Assange quote that I love so much is, every war is started with a lie. If peace can be started if war can be started with lies, then peace can be started with the truth. And these wars, these acts of aggression are always started with lies, with disinformation. And that's what we seek to challenge in our journalism and our documentaries.
Fascinating. Very, very important work, Dan. And one of the other things that stands out from both the work you did in Gaza and in Haiti is the voice of the people and their ability to distinguish between governments and people on the other side. I mean, the Haitians, the Palestinians don't hate Americans. They recognize that the government is working at the service of violent, deathly, poisonous interests. But they're actually open to and want to create a unity of humanity. Or did you feel people rejected you on the streets of Haiti as an American? They yelled at you as an imperialist attacker?
Largely, no. I was, I mean, people even thanked us for reporting on Haiti, and interviewing barbecue and showing what is really happening. So largely we were welcomed, similar to what I experienced in Palestine. There was one instance where one man came up very kind of aggressively to Kim Ives, my co-director and who produced our work in Haiti in this last trip, and said, you're responsible for the gangs. People like you are responsible for the gang violence and for the horrible conditions that we're living under. And he said, no, I'm not part of the US government. I'm not part of that. And the guy said, oh, okay. So he just assumed that because, you're a foreign guy in my country speaking American English, then you're with the powers that be. He didn't understand that we were journalists. And once he understood that we are journalists trying to show the reality of the situation, then it became, oh, okay, well, thanks, glad you're here.
So we're going to continue this discussion. Dan, you have to come visit us soon in Mexico. You can do a showing of your movie somewhere, maybe here in the UNAM or someplace here in Mexico City. We got to keep in touch because this global struggle for justice, defending humanity against neo-imperialism, neo-fascism is something that should bring us all together. And it's great to have this opportunity to talk with you.
An absolute honor and a pleasure. And I very much look forward to coming to Mexico City, and it would be great to do a screening. So we'll have to get a Spanish version of the documentary out as soon as possible and continue to collaborate and keep struggling.
Great, Dan. Well, a big hug. All the best from Mexico City. See you soon. Y muchas gracias a ustedes de nuestro público tan generoso, tan amable por seguir con nosotros en tus Diálogos por la Democracia aquí en TVUNAM. Nos vemos de nuevo en 8 días.